It's been a lovely day, although a little cold and nippy outside. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. If this is your first time tuning into the channel, my name is Denelsia. And I like reading books on here and creating my own stories as far as poetry, selling my own books, things of that nature, and my own merch. Um, I'm a lot of things, period. Right now, we are covering the book, The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. The book is 363 pages altogether. I did not read the credits or anything like that. We just got waiting on chapter 1 to upload the last time I checked. So, the second chapter that we're going to get into is E, Rules That Change the Rules. Everything popular is wrong. I can't give you a surefire formula for success. Oh, hope you had a lovely day. But I can give you a formula for failure to try to please everybody all the time. Herbert Bayard Swoop, American editor and journalist, first recipient of the Pulitzer Prize. Beating the game, not playing the game. In 1999, sometime after quitting my second unfulfilling job and eating peanut butter sandwiches for comfort, I won the gold medal at the Chinese Kickboxing National Championships. I understand them peanut butter sandwiches. It wasn't because I was good at punching and kicking, God forbid. That seemed a bit dangerous considering I did it on a dare and had 4 weeks of preparation. Besides, I have a watermelon head. It's a big target. I won by reading the rules and looking for loopholes, of which there were 2. Let's find out what the loopholes were. Number 1, weigh-ins were the day prior to competition. Using dehydration techniques I now teach to elite power lifters, I lost 28 pounds in 18 hours, weighed in at 165 pounds, and then hyperhydrated. Back to 193 pounds. It's hard to fight someone from 3 weight classes above you. Poor little guys. Number 2. There was a technicality in the fine print. If one combatant fell off the elevated platform 3 times in a single row, his opponent won by default. I decided to use this technicality as my single technique and just push people off. As you might imagine, this did not make the judges the happiest Chinese I've ever seen. The result: I won all of my matches by technical knockout, TKO, and went home national championship. Something 99% of those with 5 to 10 years of experience had been unable to do. Challenging the status quo versus being stupid. Most people walk down the street on their legs. Does that mean I walk down the street on my hands? Do I wear my underwear outside of my pants in the name of being different? Not usually. No. Then again, walking on my legs and keeping my thong on the inside have worked just fine thus far. I don't fix it if it's not broken. Salís para mí. No habla español, Señor Jose Cristobal Mujuco Ojeda, but I will interpret it with my Google Translator into Espanol later, okay? All right. Different is better when it is more effective or more fun. If everyone is defining a problem or solving it one way and the results are subpar, this is the time to ask, what if I did the opposite? Don't follow a model that doesn't work. If the receipt sucks, it doesn't matter how good a cook you are. If the recipe sucks, my bad. When I was in the data storage sales, my first gig out of college, I realized that most cold calls didn't get to the intended person for one reason: gatekeepers. If I simply made all my calls from 8 to 8:30 a.m. and 6 to 6:30 p.m. for a total of 1 hour, I was able to avoid secretaries and book more than twice as many meetings as the senior sales executives who called from 9 to 5. In other words, I got twice the results for half the time. From Japan to Morocco, from globe-trotting single mothers to multimillionaire race car drivers, the basic rules of successful new rich are surprisingly uniform and predictably divergent from what the rest of the world is doing. The following rules are the fundamental differentiators to keep in mind throughout this book. Retirement is worst case scenario insurance. Retirement planning is like life insurance. It should be viewed as nothing more than a hedge against the absolute worst case scenario, in this case, becoming physically incapable of working and needing a reservoir of capital to survive. Retirement as a goal or final redemption is flawed for at least three solid reasons. It is predicted on the assumption that you dislike what you are doing during the most physical capable years of your life. That is a non-starter. Nothing can justify that sacrifice. B, that was A. Most people will never be able to retire and maintain even a hot dogs for dinner standard of living, even 1 million in chump change in a world where traditional retirement could span 30 years and inflation lowers your purchasing power 2 to 4% per year. The math doesn't work. Well, where I'm from, they say the math ain't working. Okay. Or the math ain't math, and is what they say on this end. Okay. The golden years become lower middle class life revisited. That's a bittersweet ending. If the math does work, it means that you are one ambitious, hard-working machine. If that's the case, guess what? 1 week into retirement, you'll be so damn bored that you'll want to stick bicycle spooks in your eyes. You'll probably opt to look for a new job or start another company. Kind of defeats the purpose of waiting, doesn't it? I'm not saying don't plan for the worst case. I have maxed out 401ks and IRAs and I use primarily for tax purposes, but don't mistake retirement for the goal. Number 2, interest and energy are cyclical. If I offered you 10 million to work 24 hours a day for 15 years and then retire, would you do it? Of course not. You couldn't. It is unsustainable, just as what most define as a career, doing the same thing for 8+ hours per day until you break down or have enough cash to permanently stop. How else can my 30-year-old friends all look like a cross between Donald Trump and Joan Rivers? Well, this book was written years ago because Donald Trump's in trouble right now. I won't comment on that any further. It's horrendous. Prenatal aging fueled by triple bypass frappuccinos and impossible workloads. Alternating periods of activity and rest is unnecessary to survive, let alone thrive. Capacity, interest, and mental endurance all wax and wane, plan accordingly. The new rich aims to distribute many retirements throughout life instead of hoarding the recovery and enjoyment for the fool's gold of retirement. By working only when you are not or when you are most effective, life is both more productive and more enjoyable for the fool's gold of retirement. By working only when you are most effective, life is both most productive and most enjoyable. It's the perfect example of having your cake and eating it too. Personally, I now aim for 1 month of overseas relocation or high intensity learning, tango, fighting, whatever, for every 2 months of work projects. Number 3, less is not laziness. Doing less meaningless work so that you can focus on things of greater personal importance is not laziness. This is hard for most to accept because our culture tends to reward personal sacrifice instead of personal productivity. Few people choose to or are able to measure the results of their actions and thus measure their contribution in time. More time equals more self-worth and more reinforcement from those above and around them. The new rich, despite fewer hours in the office, produce more meaningful results than the next dozen non-new rich combined. Let's define laziness anew to endure. A non-ideal existence to let circumstance or others decide life for you, or to amass a fortune while passing through life like a spectator from an office window. The size of your bank account doesn't change this, nor does the number of your hours you log in handling unimportant email or minutiae. Focus on being productive instead of busy. 4, the timing is never right. Now that's true. I once asked my mom how she decided when to have her first child. Little old me. The answer was simple. It was something we wanted, and we decided there was no point in putting it off. The timing is never right to have a baby, and so it is. For all of the most important things, the timing always sucks. Waiting for a good time to quit your job, the stars will never align, and the traffic lights of life will never all be green at the same time. The universe doesn't conspire against you, but it doesn't go out of its way to line up all the pins either. Conditions are never perfect. Someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave with you. Pro and con lists are just as bad. If it's important to you and you want to do it eventually, just do it and correct course along the way. 5, ask for forgiveness, not permission. If it isn't going to devastate those around you, try it and then justify it. People, whether parents, partners, or bosses, deny things on an emotional basis that they can learn to accept after the fact. If the potential damage is moderation or in any way reversible, don't give people the chance to say no. Most people are fast to stop you before you get started, but hesitant to get in the way if you're moving. Get good at being a troublemaker and saying sorry when you really screwed up. Number 6. Emphasize strengths, don't fix weaknesses. Most people are good at a handful of things and utterly miserable at it. I am great at product creation and marketing, but terrible at most of the things that follow. My body is designed to lift heavy objects and throw them, and that's it. I ignored this for a long time. I tried swimming and looked like a drowning monkey. I love swimming. I tried basketball and looked like a caveman, not too hot at basketball. Then I became a fighter and took off. I like yoga. It is far more lucrative and fun to leverage your strength instead of attempting to fix all of the chinks in your armor. The choice is between multiplication of results using strengths or incremental improvements fixings. Weaknesses that will at best become mediocre. Focus on better use of your best weapons instead of constant repair. Number 7. Things in the excess become the opposite. It is possible to have too much of a good thing. In excess, most endeavors and possessions take on the characteristics of their opposite. Thus, pacifists become militants, freedom fighters become tyrants, blessings become curses, help becomes hindrance, more becomes less. Too much, too many, and too often of what you want becomes what you don't want. This is the truth. This is the truth that should have been truth, but it don't say that. This is true of possessions and even time. Lifestyle design is thus not interested in creating an excess of idle time, which is poisonous. Put the positive use of free time defined simply as doing what you want as opposed to what you feel obligated to do. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Just say no. Number 8, money alone is not the solution. There is much to be said for the power of money as a currency. I'm a fan myself, but adding more of it just isn't the answer as often as we'd like to think. In part, it's laziness. If only I had more money is the easiest way to postpone the intense self-examination and decision-making necessity to create a life of enjoyment, now and not later. By using money as the scapegoat and work as our all-consuming routine, we are able to conveniently disallow ourselves the time to do otherwise. John, I'd love to talk about that gaping void I feel in my life, the hopelessness that hits me like a punch in the eye every time I start my computer in the morning. But I have so much work to do. I've got at least 3 hours of unimportant emails to reply to before calling the prospects who said no yesterday. Gotta run. Busy yourself with the routine of the money wheel. Pretend it's the fix all, and you will artfully create a constant distraction that prevents you from seeing just how pointless it is. Deep down, you know it's all an illusion, but with everyone participating in the same game of make-believe, it is easy to forget the problem is more than money. Number 9, relative income is more important than absolute income. Among dietitians and nutritionists, there is some debate over the value of a calorie. Is a calorie a calorie? Much like a rose is a rose. Is fat loss as simple as expending more calories that you consume, or is it the source of those calories, or is the source of those calories important? Based on work with top athletes, I know the answer to be the latter. Hello, Quisnem Diallo, darling. Welcome to the chat, love. I'm reading from the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, darling. Let's look at this like a new rich. No, I don't think so. Let's look at this like a 5th grade math problem. 2 hard-working chaps are headed toward each other. Chap A, moving at 80 hours per week, and Chap B moving at 10 hours per week. They both make $50,000 per year. Who would be richer when they pass in the middle of the night? If you said B, you would be correct. And this is the difference between absolute and relative income. Absolute income is measured using one body, an inalterable variable. the raw and almighty dollar. Jane Doe makes 100,000 per year and is thus twice as rich as John Doe, who makes 50,000 per year. Oh, I'm fine, darling. Thank you for asking. How are you doing? I hope all is well. Relative income users Relative income uses two variables, the dollar and time, usually hours. The whole per year concept is arbitrary and makes it easy to trick yourself. Let's look at the real trade. Jane Doe makes 100,000 per year, 2,000 for each of 50 weeks per year, and works 80 hours per week. Jane Doe thus makes $25 per hour. John Doe makes 50,000 per year, 1,000 per each of 50 weeks per year, but works 10 hours per week, and hence, good darling, makes 100 per hour. In relative income, John is 4 times richer. Of course, relative income has to add up to the minimum amount necessary to actualize your goals. If I make 100 per hour but only work 1 hour per week, it's going to be hard for me to run amok like a superstar. Assuming that the total absolute income is where it needs to be to live my dreams, not an arbitrary point of comparison with the Joneses. Relative income is the real measurement of wealth from the new rich. The top new rich mavericks make at least 5,000 per hour out of college. I started at about $5. I'll get you closer to the former. In the second chapter of Rules That Change the Game. All right, number 10, distress is bad, eustress is good. Unbeknownst to most fun-loving bipeds, not all stress is bad. Indeed, the new rich don't aim to eliminate all stress. Not in the least. There are two separate types of stress, each as different as euphoria, and its seldom mentioned opposite, dysphoria. Distress refers to harmful stimuli that makes you weaker, less confident, and less able. Destructive criticism, abusive bosses, and smashing your face on a curb are examples of this. I suggest you definitely don't do that last one about smashing your face on a curb, okay? These are things we want to avoid. I agree. Eustress, on the other hand, is a word most of you have probably never heard of. Eu, a Greek prefix for healthy, is used in the same sense in the word euphoria. Ooh, that's one of my favorite words. Role models who push us to exceed our limits, physical training that removes our spare tires, and risk that expand our sphere of comfortability action are all examples of eustress, stress that is helpful and the stimulus for growth. People who avoid all criticisms fail. It's destructive criticism we need to avoid, not criticism in all forms. Similarly, there is no progress without e-stress, and the more e-stress we can create or apply to our lives, the sooner we can actualize our dreams. The trick is telling the two apart. The new rich are equally aggressive in removing distress and finding eustress. All right, so we're ending chapter 2, and I'll be back with chapter 3 tomorrow. Rules that change the game. And there is a question and answer section for exercises, if you would like to do those prior to us meeting up. Question and answers. How has being realistic or responsible kept you from the life you want? That's question 1. Number 2, how has doing what you should resulted in a subpar experiences or regret for not having done something else? Number 2. Number 3, look at what you're currently doing and ask yourself, what would happen if I did the opposite of the people around me? What will I sacrifice if I continue on this track for 5, 10, or 20 years? That's the homework assignment. Um, I'm going to just sum up what that homework assignment is. We call this in the witchy world shadow boxing, or doing the soul work, okay, to get to the next level. Um, yeah, so that ends chapter 2. The next chapter we'll cover before the weekend starts, and then I'll be back on Monday. No, I won't. That is the eclipse, baby. Dodging bullets. Speaking of eclipse, I wrote a piece with Destiny Markers. I posted a clipette from the book that she's working on my vocal.media page for a contest. I submitted to that contest today. The contest is for $500. I'd appreciate it if you read the material. Once this has uploaded and I've dressed the YouTube, I'll make sure to put the link down below. But in the meantime, I'm actually going to get off this live. I'm going to start another live, and I'm going to read to you that delicious piece. And then you can go to the page where it's at if you want to drink in any more of the savory, and click that lovely heart button to show that you appreciate my work if you're feeling the piece that we worked on, okay? All right. Mwah. See you in a little bit. Thank you for tuning in, darlings. Appreciate your love, tubers. Have a wonderful night.